Hey everyone, before we get to the show this week, there's some stuff that we want to talk about before we get to the fun and the hockey content, because there's more important things happening right now.
Yeah, it was a pretty intense weekend. And I think both of us felt that we don't normally dive into this stuff on the show, but I think both of us, we texted about it and we felt that staying silent was probably not the best course of action here. So we wanted to address it off the top.
Yeah. So as you know, last week, George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis, and we just wanted to touch on that. Obviously, in the hockey community, there are a ton of people who are making positive change and working towards that. I know, like Evander Kane, one of the players who's really been vocal about that and supporting other players who have joined in taking a stand and standing for the rights of those whose rights are being taken from them.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, like, one of the positives I took out of this weekend was seeing some of the statements from other hockey players too, who you don't normally hear this, who normally, I don't know if they avoid these kinds of topics, but they kind of stick to their hockey talk. And a lot of them broke away from that this weekend. And I thought that was a positive thing coming out of this weekend is seeing some of them craft into their own words some pretty forward-thinking stuff.
Yeah. And I think for us, that's what we want to be a part of. We want to be a part of forwarding that message, forwarding that conversation, and being a part of that, making sure that personally, outside of the show, I know we both want to make sure that people have the freedom that they do, that people aren't discriminated by based on color, ethnicity, gender, anything. There is no reason for any of that. And so we work towards that, much like many players are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we all just have to listen to each other and be kind to one another, and however we can help each other out, that's what we should be doing. And, I'm here for that. However I can help. And, I think I get the same kind of vibes from you too, Carl. So
yeah, just continuing to learn our roles in these things, because it does and will change. So thank you to everyone who is a part of that. We appreciate all that you're doing out there. So
absolutely.
All right. On with the show.
On with the show.
You're listening to Last Word Radio, where you get the last word.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. This is June the 1st, 2020. With you today is myself, Carl, and Stevie Nick.
Welcome, Carl.
Thank you, Nick.
Has there only ever been one show ever where you didn't start the show with that?
I want to say...
I remember I did it once. But was that the only time that it wasn't you doing it?
I know Joel's done it a few times.
Okay.
Sometimes he would surprise me with it. He would just start and we're off. So that felt good.
Maybe I should do that more. Keep you on your toes.
Just dive right in. Why not?
Can't let you get too complacent in this podcasting world.
No, exactly. Well, and so last week we said we'd be back every other week. And we're back, Nick.
Yeah, because we had a caveat in that. We said, unless there was some news.
And the NHL, I think what we said last week, we were like, thank you for giving us these little tidbits right before we recorded the show. And then next Tuesday, the NHL came out with all their news. So
yeah, it was great. And then Carl texted me and he was like, so should we do a show even though we said we wouldn't? And I was like, let's do the show because this is going to be the last news for a long time that we're going to get out of the NHL.
It's true. So we're back to every other week. So next week, no show, Nick.
Until there is one.
until we're back. We're going to keep saying no show unless there's news, all the way up until we have hockey again.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, we're back, and we do have some news. The NHL came out and talked about the playoff format, the draft, all of those sorts of things. Before we get to any of that, let's talk about our friends at Park Power, Nick. They are fantastic supporters of this here show. And if you head to parkpower.ca, you can find out how you can use them for utilities in Alberta. So if you are looking, or even if you're not, you should start looking. Park Power is a great place to go. Reasons I like it: it's local. You're supporting a local Calgary business. That also supports local nonprofits. That's number one. Number two, you save money. Their rates are comparable. And if you don't believe them, head to their website, get a quote. And it's super easy to switch, Nick. So parkpower.ca is your place to go for that. All right. Uncle Gary turned on the old Zoom call from his basement, Nick, and told us everything we've been wanting to know about the NHL.
How I want to hear how happy you were when you saw that I screen capped that picture of him on the call and sent it to you.
I could not have been happy. I wasn't able to watch the actual call, so that the fact that you came in with that was very nice.
It was like, I don't think I watched the call either. I must have seen some replay after, but the bottom tile had Bill Daly, or is it Bill Daly? I always get his name wrong. And anyways, he was in a suit. He had like a trophy case behind him. Like he had really thought about how he was presenting himself. And then the top right corner, you got like Gary at his dining room table, some terrible like mustard yellow lighting on him. And look, the guy looks, we joke about my hair every week. The guy looks like he's in my position.
I was going to say, it looks like he hadn't showered in a few days.
He's living his best quarantine life.
Like he did shave for the experience, at least. He did shave. But
he shouldn't have, though.
Like no tie.
No.
Hair disheveled. Just his background consists of like the bottom eighth corner of a picture and an empty chair in the corner. Like, really, Gary? This is the best you've got for us?
Doesn't it kind of look like his house is in like disarray and he just finished yelling at the kids to get out of the room while he's on the phone?
Yeah, exactly. Gary made us all feel a little bit better that day.
I certainly did. Anyways, what was he talking about?
He talked about the NHL's official announcement of their return to play. And so some of the things we talked about last week are officially happening. So I'd say one thing that you kind of made clear last week, so kudos to Nick, they are calling the first round of the playoffs the qualifying round.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So it's not a 24-team playoff. It's a qualifying round and then a 16-team playoff.
It's classic NHL though, eh? Like they don't want to hurt the like institution of the playoffs. They won't dishonor the playoffs by adding extra teams to it.
Yeah. So we've got that happening. We've got the seeding round robin for the 4 teams not in, I guess 8 teams, 4 per conference, not in that tournament. So that's going to be happening. As well, we've got...
Can we pause on that for a minute? How do you feel about the round robin for seeding?
I think it's good that you're going to get some actual game time. And they did also announce there's going to be 2 exhibition games per team.
Okay.
But I feel like getting some actual like game action that matters. Because as much as it's very easy to say like it's the playoffs, if you can't get up for the playoffs, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs.
I agree, but do you think the games have to matter for them? Like, can they not just have a round robin and you leave the seeding as it is? Because they really are just almost completely erasing the regular season.
Almost entirely. You have to be one of the bottom, like fifth of the league to not make it. So, yeah, I'm fine with it. It makes something matter. And like all those teams are so close together, right? Like the seeding could have changed amongst those teams anyways. Like maybe not. Like Boston had a pretty sizable lead, so maybe not them. But yeah, I'm fine with making it change up a little bit.
Okay.
Do you not? Do you want?
I think they should seed it the way the regular season ended, just to at least make that portion of the regular season count a little bit. I don't think like what the teams are worried about is going into the first round of the playoffs cold. But I think you could just have them play each other and not actually put anything on the line. And like the guys are still going to use it as warming up for the playoffs. Like they're not going to go any softer if the games aren't for seeding.
It's true. I mean, the only thing, like a similar comparable that I can think of is thinking back to like when Major League Baseball made the All-Star game count, and it was a disaster, and they had to go back and make it uncount. So I guess we'll find out in this one-off weird tournament.
I guess we will.
One thing that was kind of weird that they didn't announce, though, they did not announce if they're going to reseed the teams afterwards. What do you think? Should that happen?
Like after the play-in round?
After the play-in round, if they're going to reseed them or not.
I don't think so. I feel like they set the seeds at the start of the play-in, and you go from there. I don't know. All this reseeding, look, full disclosure, it also kind of confuses me. It makes it really hard to keep track of this whole thing.
That's fair.
So I would much rather them just set a bracket and stick to it.
Okay, yep.
I don't know if that's the most fair way to go about it, from a competitive point of view.
And I would say, in all honesty, if you're going to, I care less about it if you do this seeding round robin, because you start doing that, and it's like, well, you're basing the seeding of those other teams off of like 3 games. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I agree. Do one or the other.
Yeah. So there we go. Yeah. So we've got that sorted out. It is going to be a best of 5 in the qualifying round, and then a best of 7 the rest of the way.
Which makes sense, assuming they start on time when they want to start.
Right. Which we still don't know when that is.
Yeah.
There's still no idea of when that's going to be. So that's one thing. One thing that was interesting, I don't know how much you saw from players and coaches and teams talking about this. Because I know, we talked last week, and I had a much bigger issue than you did with the legacy of this Stanley Cup. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of these players are saying this Stanley Cup means more. If you're one of those teams in the qualifying round, you need to win 19 games to win a Stanley Cup this year, Nick.
Yeah.
Does it matter more? Should it matter more? Is it more special when you have to win an extra 3 games?
But like these guys were all on the outskirts, and like they would have had to win those 3 games in the regular season. I guess there's less pressure to do it all in one go, but they would have had to do it anyways. That's
true. Yeah.
It's so weird now, because now they've had longer than an off season of not playing hockey.
Yeah.
There's always going to be an asterisk beside the Stanley Cup. Asterisk.
I don't know. I once sat doing the exact same thing as you, listening to how you say asterisk.
Asterisk. It sounds like gibberish to me now. You say a word so much that it stops meaning anything.
It's meaningless. Well, like this Stanley Cup.
I'm not saying it's meaningless, but there's always going to be that footnote for the team that wins this year, that they came back after a 4-month break mid-season, played through the summer to win the Stanley Cup. I don't think it means any less, but there's always going to be that footnote.
Okay, so let's imagine, Nick, you get that footnote. Right? So let's say the Blues go back to back, right?
Sure.
Good on them, right? Or a team like the Penguins wins another Stanley Cup. Sure. Let's say the Toronto Maple Leafs win their first Stanley Cup in what will be now 73 years. 1967 was the last one. What's that? That's not 73.
That's not quite 70.
53 years.
There
53
you go.
years. They're whew. Is that enough? Like, does that silence the haters?
No. The haters will always say you won during the COVID year. You know what, though? My wife is convinced they're going to win this year because it would be the Leafiest thing ever for the Leafs to win, get the asterisk, and then not be able to have a parade after. Just like 3 million fans who've been waiting over 50 years for the Stanley Cup. They can't go out and celebrate. All the bars will be closed. We can't watch it together.
The bars will be closed. They'll just have, like, the players will just drive their own cars down the road and you'll wave at them as they drive past.
I don't think the Leafs are going to win this year.
No, me either. But
I think they're going to lose to Columbus, to be honest with you.
I mean, we saw Columbus. Columbus knows what they're doing. Is that the most, like, the best team chaos result, though, is the Leafs winning? For, like, the weirdest, most, like, upset fan base? Because, like, I know Edmonton, right? You get Connor McDavid's first cup.
Yeah, that one would be painful, too. Pretty much like any Canadian team, I think.
Yeah.
Any of them.
Vancouver's never won a cup, ever.
And last time they lost one, it didn't go great for them.
No, Winnipeg's never won with like any version of Winnipeg.
Nope. Calgary hasn't won since, 89?
89, yeah.
And they got close not too long ago.
I mean, if you ask people in Calgary, they still won that cup. That puck was over the line, Nick. They have their own asterisk.
Sometimes, like, I never pay attention to the Flames, but sometimes I just go watch that video just to see if, like, for some reason it's any clearer for me.
And?
I think it crossed the line.
Yeah, of course it did.
Yeah.
But, you know what? No replay, so they couldn't do it.
No replay. Just so pixelated. You'd think they would have improved that video quality, but no, they use the same one for the offside cam.
Maybe worse. It's probably still that same camera. They've just moved it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Who else? Montreal?
Yeah, Montreal. I mean, Montreal's the last Canadian city to win, so that I feel like that would be the least exciting.
I think Ottawa would be the least exciting. I feel like even people in Ottawa would be like, "Hey, great job, guys." And then they'd go home.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't have to cancel a parade in Ottawa if they win. All right.
No one drives up to Canada anyways.
Yeah. They'll just drive around the parking lot a couple times and call her a day. All right, so that's what we know about the playoffs. They also made, I mean, you thought reseeding the playoffs was confusing, Nick. Hold on, we're going to talk about the draft.
Do we have to? This thing makes zero sense.
All right, so here's how it's going to work, Nick. The Red Wings still have the best odds.
As they should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's good news for you. There's still 15 teams in the draft lottery, like we expected.
Yeah.
The draft lottery has a date, June 26th. So we should check right now. Just put that in the calendar. We should do an episode after the draft lottery.
Make sure we don't forget about it.
Either that's the 20. Oh, we are scheduled. So there you go. If no other news breaks, we're scheduled to have a show on the 29th. So that's great. So because we're either going to get happy Nick or angry Nick. Either way, we want Nick that night.
Boy, that's going to be a celebratory weekend if everything goes according to plan.
Should we plan to just record that week's episode immediately following the draft lottery?
Probably.
Just the rawest of emotions.
Oh my God.
The
optimist in me says yes. The pessimist is like, you don't want to see that.
It would be the most upset you've been since watching the Stanley Cup video.
Yeah. That was pretty upsetting.
And I'm here for that. I'm here, but also to support you like a friend.
Great. Thanks, Carl. So yeah, book a show. We'll do it.
All right. There we go. So Detroit, 18.5% chance to win the first overall pick.
I like those odds.
It's pretty good odds. And this is based off of end of season win percentage. And so what's interesting is the Devils and Sabres were tied. Same win percentage. Devils get a 1% better chance because of probably like overtime. Overtime, I think, is regulation overtime wins. They couldn't. I mean, it's a made up thing. Just give them the same percentage.
Yeah, who cares?
Just make them both have break even, split it down the difference 7%. But here's where it gets confusing, Nick. Because there are teams, the draft lottery is June 26th. There are teams in this draft lottery that we do not know who they are yet. So we have the privilege of potentially having a second draft lottery. And thus, the way it's going to work is, and I'm just, you know what? I'm just going to read because there's actually 3 different phases.
Oh, God.
So here we go. I'm just going to read it out as per the NHL's release about it. So
okay.
So they're going to do the first draw. Okay. If a team not in the bottom 7 wins any of the 3 drawings, a second phase will be conducted. So let's say, because they're still going to draw 3 numbers for those, right? If they're all from the bottom 7, we're done. There's no second draft, which is what we want.
Mm-hmm.
So if a team not a second phase will be conducted, that would take place between the end of the qualifying round and the first round of the playoffs. So if you are one of those teams, you go in there because it is ranked. So they've listed them team A, B, C, D, all the way down. So those 8 teams in the qualifying round, if one of those wins a lottery pick, we move on. So if each of the first 3 phase drawings is won by a bottom 17, the second team will not be needed. I just said that. The remaining 4 teams from the bottom. Okay. Yeah, I said that too. Okay. So they'll be eliminated order. Yeah. Okay. If a qualifying round losing team wins each of the top 3 teams, the bottom 7 teams will be assigned picks 4 to 10. I don't care about that. Tell me what's important. What the heck is happening in the second phase?
This is how the NHL releases their press releases.
The number of drawings in the second phase would depend on how many picks in the first phase are won by teams that lose. So it looks like, Nick, what they're going to do is they break it down. So if a team they don't say oh, this slot won. They say they just group all of those teams that make the qualifying round into one pick, and that pick now has the best odds at first overall. You're welcome. And they do that draw, and if that team wins, then they do a second lottery after the qualifying round so that a team can't sandbag. So let's say Montreal has the lowest playoff point percentage. And so if they knew that team A had already won, they could just be well, I want first overall pick. We're just going to put Keith Kincaid in net or whoever their backup is for all 3 games and be done. Does any of that make sense?
I have a question. What is the rush? Why not just wait until after the qualifying round and do it then?
Because they need some sort of content, Nick.
Are they that everyone else is figuring out how to put content out there?
I mean, sort of.
They need something for the TV networks.
But this is what they should do because they officially, with this, officially canceled the end of the regular season.
Yes.
Hold the award show.
That's a great idea.
Right?
That's a great idea.
How long does it take for you to get the Professional Hockey Writers Association and the GMs and everyone to vote on these things? End of the week?
Nobody's doing anything else.
You could have, you don't have to fly everyone out to Vegas anymore because you can't. So what you do is you have a Zoom call with everyone. You put Gary in the middle. You put the nominees around him. He announces the award.
I wouldn't put Gary in the middle based on his last showing.
But what if he looks worse? I think at this point in time, we might need to be doing checks on Gary Bettman to make sure he's okay.
What they should do is get Will Arnett to play Gary Bettman doing his last Zoom call. I'd watch that bit.
Yeah. I mean, again, with your hair, you could play Gary Bettman.
Oh, dude, you want a hair update, don't you?
Kind of.
Look at this bad boy.
And that's been in a hat all day, I assume. So,
yeah,
looking good.
Oh, my God.
So, Nick is wearing headphones. With his hair, you cannot tell that he's wearing headphones, though.
No, you can't see it.
They're just gone. I think you've got a good thing going there, though. I think that you shouldn't trim it all the way down. It's not
all gonna go. I feel so bad complaining about it though, because two of my best friends are entering that phase in their lives where their hair is not really growing back in. And I'm here, I'm like, man, my hair's so thick, there's so much of it, I need to cut so bad. And they're like, shut your damn mouth. You don't get to complain about having too much hair.
Yeah, I'm over here commenting, not even complaining. I've got some grays happening, and I don't really care because, again, there's folks out there in much worse hair situations.
Yeah. Anyways, I digress. That's a great idea, Carl. They should have the award show. That affects nothing.
No, and it gives us content, and maybe can show some personality and have some great stuff.
Yeah. That's a great idea. And then just wait to hold this lottery until after. Why would you want to have more than one lottery? I have another question. If in phase 1, the Red Wings win the first overall pick, my Red Wings win the first overall pick.
Yes.
And then some team in the qualifying round gets the second or third, do they completely redo the draw? Is the first one scrapped completely?
No.
So the Red Wings still have the first overall pick going into phase 2.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Then I'm more okay with it now.
Yeah. This is telling me yes. But I can't 100% promise you that.
Of course you can't. It's so confusing. Why even release it?
They could have just, like you said, they could have just waited because if they're gonna have to do phase 2, it's gonna be between the qualifying round and the first round of the playoffs. So they're gonna have to have a second draft anyways. Just only do one. But they're clamoring so much to get some sort of they're like, can you imagine having 2 draft lotteries? That's what they want, Nick.
I guess so. The whole process screams of something that they came up with in a boardroom that makes sense to them because they're so close to it. And now they've released it to people who are more objective and not close to it. And we're all like, what the hell does any of this mean?
Yeah. They look at it and they say, look, here's our revenue and it's nothing.
Yeah.
What if we have 2 of these? Do you think they're going to, NHL's never been proven to rig the lottery, but do they rig it so that they have to hold the second one?
And do you think they're going to have all the participating teams GMs on Zoom calls in their office waiting for the numbers to be released? Imagine. And then there's a lag on Bill Daly's screen and it just gets stuck at the number 2 pick.
That would be something.
Oh, man.
We've already seen Steve Yzerman's fantastic Zoom call background work. So
did you see that?
His green screen work is fine.
I guarantee that was not his green screen work.
No.
They definitely had the IT guy from the office on for 2 hours that morning trying to figure it out.
Yeah. It was good, though. So I think that should be a thing that we have to do. Who knows? He could have been using Gary Bettman's kitchen table as well. And he was like, look, Gary, didn't look so hot last time. All right, so we got that, Nick. Another question that came out of all of this is conditional picks and what's going to happen with them. The NHL announced all of this and as well, similarly to with the draft lottery, they only gave a little bit. Same as with the playoff rules, they only gave a little bit. Conditional picks, they waited and said, all right, here's your information. So they said that if there's a conditional pick that is contingent on making the playoffs, then here it is. For trade condition purposes, a club will not be deemed to have qualified for the playoffs unless or until they have progressed into the round of 16. So there you go, Nick. For the purposes of this, and I think that seems fair and reasonable, the qualifying round does not count as making the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
And there's a number of those. So Pittsburgh, the pick that they sent to Minnesota for Jason Zucker, that's one of them. The Vancouver Canucks in the JT Miller trade, they did those. Tampa actually sent that pick to New Jersey in the end. So that's a conditional pick as well. So those are the first round picks. And again, in all of this, there is one more conditional pick that has to be dealt with. And it is the conditional pick in the Milan Lucic trade, which is conditional on like total games and goals and all of those things. So NHL did not say what happens with that pick.
They're probably going to ask the teams to kind of renegotiate it and see if they can come up with fresh terms on it.
Yeah. So the condition, I mean, it
was regular season or playoffs?
It was regular season, and it was based on, so if James Neal scores 21 goals and has 10 goals more than Milan Lucic, the Flames were to get a third-round pick. When games ended, James Neal had 19 goals, so 2 short of the total, and he had 11 more than Lucic. So, like, it's right there.
They're going to get that conditional pick.
Gotta think, right?
Yeah, I think so. Man, these conditions are getting crazier and crazier every year.
It's just so funny that this is what we have to deal with sitting here. So, there you go, Nick. This is all we know. This was the NHL news of the week.
I mean, hey, considering the times we're in, there's a lot for them.
And they again managed to spread it out over multiple days.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who knows when? We still have no idea when we'll return to play. We have, they still said that phase 2 is supposed to start of their relaunch is supposed to happen at the beginning of June. So we'll see, assuming that happens in the next week or so. But until then, this is kind of where we're at. So,
man, I can think of so many more ideas for content for them. That's not to have the draft lottery before it makes sense to.
Let's give them some free content, Nick. What would you give them?
Oh, there's a million things they could do. They could do, like, with the amount of things they have in their vault, they could do some awesome documentaries right now. Why aren't they doing great documentaries on historic NHL moments? Some of the old stuff.
Well, even like, I don't know, have you watched The Last Dance?
Yes. Fantastic.
Yeah. So I am 1 episode in.
Oh man, you're in for a treat.
And I love the fact that, one, they just like held this content for so long.
Right?
Like, we're going to sit on this for 22 years and then we'll release it. But also like going back to like, I mean, they don't, I've again only watched the first episode, but going back and looking at his draft year and like college, and I mean, I wasn't alive in 1984, 1983. Like I was not aware of what he was doing and all of that. So, like if you had have asked me, I would have just assumed that he'd gone first overall, but he didn't.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Who knew? Well, probably lots of people knew. It's probably well documented, but I learned that through the documentary. But you know what's great about that documentary that the NHL could learn from? It's inoffensive. It doesn't paint really, it paints some people in a bad light, but like it doesn't go into really some of the nastier parts of Michael Jordan's private life and personality. He had final say on it, but it was so entertaining. And I think what was so entertaining about it was just like, it was a shot of nostalgia that you could take that took you back to this like amazing team, and the story of the team was strong enough. And the NHL has so many of those stories in their history that they could put together. I would watch like 40-minute documentaries about that kind of stuff.
If you could pick one non-Detroit Red Wings team to have a documentary about them, what team would you want?
Philadelphia Flyers through the 70s.
Broad Street Bullies documentary?
Yeah.
I'm not sure you could make that without painting some people in a bad light, man.
I'd watch one like that. I'd watch one about the Islanders teams through the 80s, about the Oilers teams through the 80s, the Penguins in the early 90s. Like, these are teams that I knew are so good and won so many cups, but I don't really know anything about how they were built, what they went through to get there.
I mean, I know that we did like last summer going through our hockey history series, but like I think a documentary of Gretzky's rookie year in the WHA, because you've got all the WHA drama, you've got Gretzky, so good.
Yeah. Right? And they have access to all of that. That's what I'd be doing if I was them. And you know what? Partner with Sportsnet. Show it on Sportsnet or show it on NBC.
Yeah. Make them both happen.
Yeah.
You made your partners happy because they've got nothing.
Nothing. I mean, they're just showing old parts of old games. As well give them at least something fresh.
And there's not even like sitcoms or like TV shows on right now. It's literally the dog days of summer, but with nothing. There we go. I would love that. I think some other good content, Nick. Actually, let's get into the quarantine corner because we've got a question about this.
Okay, great.
Quarantine.
Each corner is to be a personal space.
God. New guy's in the corner puking his guts out.
You're gonna quarantine me inside a quarantine? Really?
Rocky Balboa prays in his corner, the champ.
Am I still in quarantine?
Nobody puts baby in the corner.
All right, so our question this week comes in, Nick, and the question is, if you could, should the NHL make mascots playable in video games? Who'd be the best player? And so we'll get to that, but I think what could be good is, because a lot of the stuff going on out there is, you have to wear proper facial protection to be able to be in close contact with people. A mascot suit seems sufficient, does it not?
I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, it does. It totally does. Your hands are covered. Your face is covered.
Right. Like if anyone is allowed to be anywhere, it's the team mascot.
So are you going to suggest what I think you're going to suggest?
I mean, like a mascot Royal Rumble isn't the worst of ideas.
Oh, yes.
Right?
A mascot, anything really. Just bring them all into the same place.
Like, my only concern is that, like, we know Gritty's going to try to steal the show, and I don't want that.
I don't know how you avoid that.
Because there's some good mascots out there.
So a list of NHL mascots somewhere?
It's got to be. So, but if you're looking at it, one, how quickly would you sign up to watch that?
I mean, yeah, I'm there. And that's just how sad the state of this quarantine has become.
Right. Because so every team in the league has a mascot. So we got 31 mascots. We meet up. We can do like a little, maybe like some play-in to get into the Royal Rumble. Maybe we have like a cage match with a couple of them. Either way, Nick, we get quite the show here. We got, I mean, you got to think Al the Octopus would put in a pretty strong showing.
Yeah. He could take on 8 guys at once.
Right? Are his arms actually, like, 'cause there's no one in that suit, is there? There's no
they don't have an actual suit.
Right. But I mean, like we say, what else are you doing these days? Get to work.
Right?
So I mean, we got that. We've got a lot of bears, a lot of animals, right?
Yeah, a lot of dogs.
A lot of dogs. We've got, both a shark and a dragon. We've got an eagle,
Penguin.
some cats, Yuppie. So, and Gritty to top it all off. So, I'm just saying, Nick, that this is what I want.
It's not a bad idea.
It's safe. You're wearing your protection. I don't see why we can't do this.
I have so many questions about, because I did find the list of NHL mascots, and apparently the New York Islanders mascot is a dragon. Not sure what the connection is there.
Would you? So do you want to know? I mean, this is part of it. He was previously, the NHL is so desperate for content, they're stealing content from the Arena Football League because the New York Dragons were a team and they went under and they just said, all right, fine, the Islanders will take them.
They just took the costume.
Yeah, I mean, the owner of the Islanders at the time also owned the arena team, so he was like, well, I'm not going to let that perfectly good suit go to waste.
That's next level. That thing cost me $900.
Yeah.
Send it over to Lou. He'll find a purpose for it.
I mean, there's a lot of weird choices for mascots, right? I think like anytime you just have like a giant like furry thing, which I think we have 3 things that are just at least four generic furry creatures in the league
that aren't really an animal at all.
5. Like we got, I guess, like the Wild, the Dallas. We've got who are the other? Anyways, there was
Gritty.
5. Gritty, Yuppie.
Yuppie.
And maybe there was another one. Either way, did I say St. Louis? St. Louis.
St. Louis is a polar bear. I have questions about that. Why is
That's
the
a
mascot
polar
for
bear?
St. Louis a polar bear, according to Wikipedia?
Louis. Polar bear. Huh. Well, because we've got Carlton the Bear is also a polar bear in Toronto.
And he's blue. What kind of polar bear? Like, I just figured it out. They threw in the suit with the jerseys into the washing machine.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. You've got a lot of weird, like Calgary, Harvey the Hound. Calgary has this weird thing where every mascot for the teams in the city, their mascot is a dog. I don't know why.
Guys like your dogs out there.
But that's what they do. Yeah. Anyways, Nick, there we go. So that's some content they could do.
100%.
Or even, I mean, to go back to the original question, yes, they should. I do know that I have played as mascots in the NHL franchise, like we've talked about in the past. We're not annual subscribers to the EA Sports Money Train, so not sure if it's out this year. But in the Threes tournament, some mascots could be unlocked, and that was always fun. But I mean, it was suggested on Twitter today that that's when you want Al the Octopus, an 8-legged goalie in net.
Oh yeah, he'd definitely be the goalie.
Yeah, right. But I would watch mascots, not just I would watch them play hockey, on NHL.
I would watch them in a mascot version of The Office. Just Gritty with the tie on.
Who do you think would be each? Can you think of who would be the characters? Like, who would be Michael Scott? Which?
Oh man, I don't know these mascots well enough.
Gritty would be Creed. That's what we know.
Oh my god, yes, he totally would be Creed. Gritty would be Creed. I don't know. I feel like maybe the blue polar bear.
Yeah, like a little bit weird, but also down to business.
Or the Bruins, the bear.
So a form of a bear.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to say that like Jim would probably be. Oh, geez, I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't like. Do these mascots have personalities?
Some of them do, maybe. I know Bailey the Lion's a real jerk on Twitter. I know that much.
Oh, really? Twitter drama with the mascots.
The podcast account has had multiple run-ins with Bailey the Lion. Mostly because after the first one, I wanted to see if it was a thing.
I love that we're picking fights with the mascot.
I believe it initially started with a former host starting that fight. But we definitely finished it.
That's great.
Anyway, yeah, them as a sitcom would be great. Or like Survivor.
Oh yeah. Doing challenges without being able to talk to each other.
You have to do it in your suit. Yeah, and you're voting people off every week. I like all of this.
Do any mascots talk? Like, I really like the idea of a TV show where they're being interviewed and they don't actually say anything. They're just like moving their hands and shaking their heads.
Yeah. Miming it. That would be the best type person to hire as a mascot, though, a mime.
Yeah.
Put a mime in a mascot suit, you're set.
Yeah, totally.
There's more stuff for you, NHL.
Just a content generating machine over here.
Yeah. All of this in a mere 45 minutes. So you are welcome. Well, Nick, that's it. That's the news of the week. That's been our Quarantine Corner. We'll be back in 2 weeks. As promised, in 2 weeks we'll be back. Until then, make sure to follow us on our social media at Fourth Line Podcast on Twitter, facebook.com/the Fourth Line Podcast. You can find us on all the podcasting things, Spotify, iTunes, Google, all those things. And before we wrap up, I want to let everyone know about the fantastic work that ATB is doing supporting podcasts in Alberta. Obviously, ATB supports the Alberta Podcast Network, but they're also supporting something called Pod Power, where they're amplifying the voices of Albertans and Alberta podcasters. And the one I want to share with you this week, Nick, is called The Shared Mic. And The Shared Mic is Edmonton's first unscripted intergenerational podcast. The show connects two people of different ages and stages to interview each other about shared life experiences. It's hosted by Age Friendly Edmonton, a partnership between the City of Edmonton and the Edmonton Seniors Coordinating Council. You can find The Shared Mic wherever you get your podcasts or at thesharedmic.blueberry.net. And make sure there's no E's in the way that they spell blueberries. So don't put any E's in. Take them out. Blueberry, thesharedmic.blueberry.net. So until next time, when we're back in 2 weeks, because there's no way the NHL finds another way to find any content between now and then, we'll see ya.
Time for us to wrap up another Fourth Line show. I know what you're thinking. You don't want us to go. Whoever wins the Stanley Cup, they will be just fine. But let's hope we only do the draft lottery one time.